Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Government Secrets, episode 98, with the two most censored comedians in America, Crab Elwood and Lee Camp. Boom!
What? Who? What? Where am I? I always love when you comment on how you need a haircut right before bringing me on. You're like, this is out of control, folks. I don't know what to do with this. I look like a fucking hippie. And then you're like, and here's Lee Camp.
My hair is out of control, and here's a godless long hair, Lee Camp, ladies and gentlemen.
Meanwhile, here I am looking like Weird Al Yankovic or some shit. But no.
Are you going to start doing song parodies for us, Lee? I can't wait for that.
Yeah, the Superman curl in my beard is doing pretty well. I feel like. Did he? I can't remember if he had a curl in the Superman curl in the beard. But.
Sure he did. Yeah. Superman was always known for having a big beard. That was kind of his deal.
Big bushy beard. That was when they did that Depressed series on Superman.
When
Superman just bummed out.
He went through a breakup with Lois Lane. He's just chopping wood like, out in the nowhere.
He's like, my favorite outfit, the underwear on the outside, people telling me it's not in anymore. It's not hip anymore. It's really just bumming me out, man.
He's just sitting there just like using his x-ray, his like laser vision to like just burn
to warm up one of those like Hungry Man microwave dinners.
Just sad, depressed bachelor food.
It's just using fucking whatever laser vision to heat up his ramen noodles.
Oh God. Yeah, he just doesn't. That's all he does. He just flies to the market and just gets microwavable meals that he just nukes up with his eyeballs. That's depressed Superman.
I just realized that's the power they don't really highlight anymore, is the X-ray vision of Superman. Because it's like, when you can rip the wall off a building, you're not really like, let's see what's going on inside there without letting anyone know that I'm watching them. Like,
no. It's because, typical, he's been co-opted as just part of the American military industrial complex. Right. So
he's not doing a lot of spying. I mean, when you can pick up a guy's whole building and just like throw it out into the ocean, you don't do a lot of like sneaking around. What's going on in there?
Plus, the NSA is like, we know what's going on in there. We've got everybody's cell phone tapped in. We got it. We don't need you looking through walls. It's
Superman
fine.
Was NSA before NSA. Yeah,
he's the original NSA. That's what his shirt should say. Superman. I put the S in the original NSA. That's Superman's new logo.
Used to be you needed Superman to find out what someone was doing in their house. Now Amazon just bought Roomba so they can map out your internal living space.
I'm never going to hire one of those robots. Just have this robot. He's going, yeah, really? He's just going to come clean up, find my crypto wallet. And,
Oh, yeah. He's just picking up crumbs. Is that all he's doing? Is that it? Talk to me, robot. I know who you work for.
Hey, Roomba, why do you keep trying to clean up near my tax documents? What's going on over there, Roomba? It's not that dirty.
Roomba, why do you always seem to be nearby monitoring my porn choices?
Roomba, why are you going near my hard drive full of Epstein files? Why do you keep going near that, Roomba? Well, Lee, before we get into our GovSeeks, we should let people know we've got 3 European shows. Our Government Secrets live Euro tour is happening, right, buddy? Stockholm, October 3rd. Then we go to Berlin, October 5th. And then London, October 12th. Tickets are at leecamp.com and grahamelwood.com.
That's right. It is happening, man. And people better get their tickets now. Just cuz.
Yeah, and those are the only shows we're doing, guys. So if you're somewhere near one of those cities like Stockholm, or like if you live in Copenhagen or remember that country
Ireland. Spain.
Yes, or Paris. You should come to one of those. Like if you live in the a different part of Germany, or let's say you live in, remember we talked about Estonia. Estonia we found out is near something. So remember when we discovered that on the show?
That's right. Graham had one of the deeper realizations on the show. He said Estonia is near something. And it's totally true. I mean, you can look it up right now. It is true.
Look it up. And the media is never talking about it. The corporate media never talks about how Estonia.
Media refuses to mention that Estonia is near something.
One of the places it is near is Stockholm, Sweden, that we only this show talks about geography in this manner. So,
but yes, do not say to yourself, I'll see them next time, because we will both be dead. No.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Wow. All right. This is wow. Well, I would say without as dark a view as Lee has said, I would say coming to Europe is a big undertaking, and you don't know when we will be able to do this again, schedule wise. So that's why I would come see Government Secrets live. And then,
and if you get the tickets ahead of time, it's like whatever, $18, $20, something like that. If you get them at the door, $3,700.
$37.
So get them early.
Buy them early. It helps us and the venue know who's going to be there to plan for the show. The VIP tickets in London are already sold out. So they sold out a while ago. So I would get on this. And then I've got a bunch of tour dates. I'm doing stand-up to get ready for my comedy special taping. So New York City, I'm there right there at Broadway Comedy Club off of Times Square, October 18th. Madison, Wisconsin, October 20th. Detroit, Michigan, October 21st, Cincinnati, Ohio, October 22nd. And then I will be in Sweet Home, Chicago, taping my special on October 26th at Zanies, one of the oldest clubs in the country, one of the clubs I started at. So we've got 4 5K cameras. It's going to be really awesome. You can see my headshot from when I was 22 years old. It's fantastic. I have a t-shirt with a vest over it. The 90s were a complicated time for a lot of us folks, so we're going to have to deal with that. Now I just have a small pocket. So
just a tiny pocket. You claim, Graham, that you only have one shirt with a tiny pocket, but that would mean you're wearing that shirt on every Government Secrets episode.
Lee, I wear different shirts for this show. Usually I wear a collared button-up shirt because it's in the morning and I can just put that on and it doesn't ruffle my hair as much. So and then I can just take it off when the show's over and go surfing. So Tony DeMeo is going to be there in Chicago.
Sorry, go ahead.
As his backyard politics. JB Updike from Open Primaries will be there. It'll be a fantastic show. So go to GrahamElwood.com for all of those tickets and come see us at a live show. They are a lot of fun.
All right, man. Let's do yours first.
So I wanted to do just a today in Government Secrets. On this day in Government Secrets, ladies and gentlemen, we want to talk about the Walking Purchase or Walking Treaty. Was a 1737 agreement between the Penn family, the original proprietors of the province of Pennsylvania. So literally, the state of Pennsylvania was just owned by a family, just to give you an idea of how America started.
Do you know the idea that there weren't oligarchs in early America? Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's a hilarious concept. This country, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were written by oligarchs. So it became the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania after 1776. So, and the Lenape Native Indians, also known as the Delaware Indians, in the purchase. Now, Lee, before I get into this, do you think true or false? Just try. I don't know. Just take a guess. Do you think this was a fair deal for the Native American tribe?
Judging by my knowledge of history, history and historical facts, yes, the Native Americans had a lot of good deals. They got a lot of good deals from the whites.
Deals.
That the whites would come over and offer them their land back. Not really. No.
Yes. Well, this is another great example of how rich white oligarchs gave the Native Americans a fantastic deal. In the purchase, the Penn family proprietors claimed a 1686 treaty with the Lenape ceded an area of roughly 1.2 million acres along the northern reaches of the Delaware River at the northeastern boundary between the province of Pennsylvania.
You can put the map on the screen.
All right, let me put that map on the screen so people can get a sense of where that is.
So it's the shaded area.
The shaded area to the right of the screen, right? Which is the boundaries basically between Pennsylvania and West New Jersey and east of the province of New Jersey, which after the Revolutionary War became the state of New Jersey, and forced the Lenape to vacate it. The Lenape appealed to the Iroquois Indian tribe to the north for aid on the issue, but the Iroquois refused the request. So, but at least America likes to make things right eventually, right? So then
always,
that's what America's known for, right? So then in 2004, there was a court case, the Delaware Nation versus the state of Pennsylvania. The Delaware Nation, one of three later federally recognized Lenape tribes, and its descendants in the 21st century claimed 314 acres of land included in the original so-called purchase in 1737. But the U.S. District Court granted the Commonwealth's motion to dismiss. It ruled that the case was non-justiciable. Sounds like a good
reason.
Just we're making up words to screw over Native Americans. And the Delaware Nation's allegations of fraud were untrue. This ruling held through several appealed actions made through several levels of the United States Court of Appeals. The United States Supreme Court refused to hear the case, which had the effect of upholding the lower appeals court's decision. So
basically the modern day Native Americans were saying, this land was stolen from us, and they were just asking for, I believe I have it right, a tiny portion of it back.
314 acres.
314 acres. That's like the size of a rich person's estate.
Yeah.
And
after 1.2 million acres were taken from them, they just wanted
300. We're traded with them for the price of 3 fresh oysters.
Yeah.
And all they wanted was 300 acres. And our fucking white supremacist court system was like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. I know you got your people got screwed over a couple 100 years ago. So we're going to stick it to you again. How about that? How's that sound? Right?
Because, you give them 300 acres and then they want the fucking 500 acres. And we just don't have the land to give. I mean, we just don't have that much.
Yep. So this day in history, a tribe got screwed over twice. So that, that's another thing to be proud of, Americans. It's rare that this country can, well, not rare, but yeah, we always just stick it to you twice. If we can get you a second time, we're going to do that. And then say, well, the court, so, you had your day in court. That's always our corrupt court system.
Until recently, like a few years ago, it suddenly occurred to me that not only our systems, our court systems are run by, mostly rich white people. I mean, to become a elite lawyer or elite judge, generally you are coming from a more wealthy family. Not always, but a lot of the time. And so not only is it kind of run like that part I knew, but it only occurred to me, was like, oh yeah, all the rich white men, landowning men wrote the laws in the first place. So
yeah.
Then you go into the courts and you go, hey, we'd like this to happen or this to happen. They go, look at this law that my grandfather wrote.
Just some old, it's the thing we've talked about a lot on the show, because there's so many segments we've done where they they want to feel good about themselves. So they find some loophole or they rewrite some law and go, well, that's the law. Like it's just, it's even more weaselly than just taking it and saying, we stole it from you. It's like more than then they come back and say, oh, well, our system, oh, great. Yeah. The Supreme Court.
Sorry, you froze there for a minute. I don't know if you froze. I don't know if you just froze for me or froze for everybody, but
I don't think am I good? Everybody in the chat? Am I good? Doesn't sound like it.
Anyway, seems all right now.
Good. Well, so that's this week in Government Secrets, Lee Camp. That's a fantastic history lesson. This show is the
it's a love letter to America. It's just a real Hallmark card, one of those where you open it up and like a heart like pop up comes out and some music starts playing. That's what it is to America.
You know, Lee, you and I should both start doing this show with a green screen and then just have like American eagles flying and flags waving behind us the whole time we do the show.
And just occasionally a guy shooting at the eagles.
So just another teaser for the live show. What we did at our live show in Los Angeles a year ago, the music that was playing as everybody was walking in was patriotic American music. So I really want to do that in foreign countries.
So honestly, it was like, I have to thank Graham for putting the pre-show together because that was all you. But it was such a like LSD trip of like of inside jokes that someone had to like watch every episode to get like half of. And it was just like, so you just see like images of John Tesh albums and shit.
I had to put a photo up of my smashed up Nissan Leaf. I put the John Tesh thing. There was a Nessie for mayor of Atlantis campaign poster that we put up there. It was, I'm going to make another one that's going to have more inside jokes on it. Like with a map of Estonia near something. Like that's what I'm going to have.
Something to do with goat balls. Yeah, it's going to be epic, folks.
Yeah, it was so much fun to make because it's just like such an inside. It's just all inside jokes for diehard fans. That's all it is.
All right. Well, this next topic is it's an epic topic. I wanted to do her justice because our history that's taught to our children in this country does not do her justice. But I don't know if you want to do your weird voice thing.
I like how it's just like an appeasement for your kind of on the spectrum buddy. Like it's just sort of like I know you like doing
I know you have, if you want to let off your Tourette's for a moment, go for it.
I know you like yelling in weird voices, Graham, if that keeps the balances out the one pocket. So this all right, Lee. Thank you. Since I do this for the fans because
like every once in a while they let the special kid swing the bat at the baseball game. He doesn't know it doesn't count.
That's what this is. It's just like you edit this out of when we post this online so nobody knows that I did this.
Graham doesn't know this has not been on any actual podcast.
Well, here goes everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Lee Camp segment number 2, a really long one.
Wow, you do know how to hype a segment. You know how to sell it, man. All right, so this is the story of Fannie Lou Hamer, which for those of you who are like history buffs, you may be like, oh yeah, awesome. I know all about her. But the reason I view this as a government secret is because I wasn't taught about her in school. And I think that although she did get some acclaim towards the end of her life and shortly thereafter, I think this is one of those people that, American history would like to slowly forget, to let ease away, slowly disappear, like the way, those curlers let go of the stone as they slide along. Just slowly ease away from it.
Just let the there's just one of those curlers for just like Eugene Debs and Fred Hampton and just like
Just
Smedley Butler. Just let it go.
Steve Stone says the name on the side of it. Yeah, goodbye, Smedley. Goodbye.
Hello. Oh, thank you, Henry Wallace. Just let it slide.
Right. Exactly. So, and I'll be honest, you know, for those of you who don't know who Fannie Lou Hamer is, I fucking didn't know until a few weeks ago. So
I'm finding out about her right now in real time.
Born and also I thought she was important to do because and maybe we've talked about this before, but if you look at like who we worship in our country, who's held up as these are the pivotal Americans. And if you look at the statues in our country, although some of them are being taken down now, but it's almost exclusively white dudes. Almost exclusively white dudes on horses. There are more horses to look up to in America than black women, apparently, according to our statues. So,
yeah, and it's always just like on this big steed. It's always this really weird kind of, the horses always look kind of violent and crazy and like demonic, just like these hellhound horses just trampling through downtown.
Well, because that bold white guy was able to tame said horse.
Yes, Lee Camp.
All right. So born in 1917 in Montgomery County, Mississippi, Fannie Lou Hamer was the 20th and youngest child of Lou, Ella, and James Townsend. So this is 1917. Both her parents worked as sharecroppers their entire lives. Now, we've mentioned sharecropping before. It's essentially slavery after slavery. Like, it was putting the black population in a position where they had to keep working the farms because there was very little else for them and they were hardly paid. Often they lived on the property. And it was like, this is all we'll give you to survive is keep being a slave, but you're technically free, you know?
And you were promised 40 acres and a mule to have your own land and start your own farm, but that's not what happened. You had to just basically, a sharecropper, as I understand it, is you're basically like leasing the land. It's not your land, and the crops are basically going to the actual landowner. So you're just a slave that has a few more rights.
Well, and they had a bunch of ways to put them into debt so that they couldn't get out of it. So it really was like economic slavery instead of literally chasing you with a gun. But it was like, okay, you're going to be our sharecropper, one of our sharecroppers. We'll give you this lot of land. You are indebted to us for this crazy amount of money. And we will, imagine, the amount of wage theft that goes on current day with like McDonald's employees. Now imagine you are a poor black sharecropper in the South. Who do you turn to when they're stealing wages from you? Like,
no one. But I'm so glad America's gotten rid of the wage slavery. Now nobody's just indentured to their crappy jobs in America anymore, or tied to something because they need health insurance or working.
No, you're speaking of the law of everybody do what you want, what you love in life. That passed in 2017. Yeah. Yeah, so every American does exactly what they want with their lives.
Yeah, and it's not, we haven't also since the pandemic had like nationwide highest rents ever across the board. Like the cost of living, there's no inflation. Joe Biden just said that the pandemic's over, which is like, wow, it's official. Biden is handling COVID worse than Trump. Like, it's amazing. I didn't think that was possible, but he's done it.
I actually found out that an hour ago that it's not anyone I know anymore. But a mother of a friend I knew years ago just died in her sleep from COVID at like age 55 or something. Like,
yeah, people are still dying from it every day.
It's over. Yeah.
But it's over. I mean, it's just like Biden. I love it. Yeah, it's done. And just like when he said, there's no, when the reports came out in July 28th of the GDP, 2 quarters of negative, which is a firm, solid indication along with inflation rates that, we're in a recession. And then the Biden administration just goes, no, we're not.
Well, and I just did a video on how, by the way, folks, my other show is called The Most Censored News. So look that up. But I just did a video on how the Fed is intentionally causing a recession because recessions increase corporate power and decrease worker power because people will lose their jobs and workers will want to take any job they can because far more than inflation, what corporate America, what the ruling class is worried about right now is the worker power. The fact that workers actually have a lot of power right now. You're seeing a lot of strikes. You're seeing a lot of unionizing, and that is the bigger threat to them.
Oh, it's huge. They're deliberately going to nosedive this economy because when you see like, you know, a Chipotle like offering $20 an hour to come work there and they have to pay real wages because nobody wants to work at these places anymore. They're like, we need to nosedive the economy so we can get everybody back here for minimum wage and just be thankful they got this shitty job. Like because they know all these strikes that we've talked about it, the over 200 Starbucks that have unionized, what Chris Smalls did at the Amazon warehouse in New York, like a couple of Apple stores, some Trader Joe's now. Everybody's waking up to that they should unionize. And so they're like, we need to nosedive the economy. Biden, the only thing is Biden and the Democrats are a little resistant to it because that's just bad for elections.
Yeah. I mean, the right winger will win next time. Whoever it is, I mean, they're all right wing. So I shouldn't say that. The so-called Republican will win next time, no matter who it is. But all right, we should get back to Fannie Lou Hamer. No. It's me too. These things, because these things all make me so furious, it's tough to like touch on one and then be like, but we're not talking about that right now.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I know. It's like,
you know, you mentioned recession, and I'm like, these motherfuckers. So.
We both can just have, we both have touch point, like little, just like, like third rails that we'll just like, no, that's a cool, funny point. And here's another thing. Epstein, he's tied to all of them, and the recession and the military industrial complex. And it's like, all right. Let's come back.
Here's something you've never heard from Graham. Let's not talk about Epstein right now. We're on another topic. So that's more important.
I don't want to, I really hate showing how everything's tied to Epstein. It's a bummer. So let's move on to the next.
So speaking of sharecropping and how fair it was, when Fannie Lou Hamer was 6 years old, she joined her family working on the plantation. Hamer was essentially tricked into picking cotton as a child by the plantation owner, who offered the hungry child food if she picked 30 pounds of cotton in a week. The 6-year-old Hamer never thought that she'd be expected to work every day with no more food as a reward and with the barest of pay. By the age of 13, Hamer was picking as much as 400 pounds of cotton in a day, receiving $1 for her work. That's from 6 to 13.
Wow.
Fannie Lou Hamer's parents tried hard to keep their children in school, but apparently, I didn't know this either. Apparently, even if they were in school was 4 months back then. So, because these people, you know, poor people, but especially black people, were expected to be working out in the fields all day, even if they were children. So, all right, we'll let them go to school for 4 months. And they often didn't have the right kind of clothes to wear, so they would miss out on school or whatever. Since Hamer had learned how to read and write during her brief time in school, she also worked, once she got a little older, she got married to a truck driver, and she worked as a timekeeper on the plantation, which involved maintaining the records of the bales picked, pay due, working hours, etc. This job ended up giving her an insight into how the owners used deliberate miscalculations and various devices to cheat sharecroppers who come to settle up at the end of the season. Isn't it a shock that the white owners of these plantations were like, well, these fucking people won't know if I cheat them or not. So why would I not cheat them? I don't want to pay them. So
why would I want to pay someone for their labor? Like, why would I want to be fair and honest and pay somebody? And then I'm sure these owners would then go to church and do their Bible and talk about how just they were and how lying was a sin, but whatever. God.
Yeah. And and this is also part of the reason that they didn't want black people to learn to read, to learn to write, to learn math. It was a form of control, a form of continuing to cheat them. So, but Hamer, despite the fact that this could be very risky for a young black woman in the South in the 1920s, she she decided to rebel because she found out about the fraud by bringing her own, she called it a weighted instrument. So I guess a weighted scale. So the scales that the sharecropper, she would add it to the scales so the sharecroppers could get their fair share. So she's basically recooking the books to pay people fairly because she's the, working at the plantation. I mean, I can't imagine what, like, the risk she was taking other than just being fired. Who knows what the fuck they would have done to her if they'd found out.
Wow. Well, that's some badass Robin Hood shit right there. Like, I'll give her credit for that. I mean, that's like,
yeah. Yeah. In 1961, Hamer underwent surgery. Oh, Grant, I think we're coming up on the moment where Graham just stares in stunned silence at me. 1961, Hamer underwent surgery to remove a small cyst in her stomach, only to find upon waking that she had also been given a hysterectomy without her consent. This type of forced sterilization was so common at the time for Black women that it became referred to as the Mississippi appendectomy, a term coined by Hamer herself. In 1964, Hamer testified before a panel in Washington, D.C., that at the North Sunflower County Hospital, 6 out of every 10 Negro women, that's her term, that go to the hospital are sterilized without their consent.
Jesus. Like, God. You see why they don't want anyone to learn about this, because it's just so awful. They're just like, no, we want to keep this. It's all of it. It's just like when we were doing the curling thing, there's like Japanese internment camps, the genocide of Native Americans, sterilization, sterilizing people. Oh, God.
Yeah. Forced sterilizations. And by the way, it's a very extensive article. It's great. It's actually in grunge.com, which I don't know about them, but I did double check plenty of their stuff. So it's a good, reliable article, but there aren't that many long form articles, honestly, about Fannie Lou Hamer, but forced sterilizations have a dark history and an equally dark present in the United States. Indiana passed the first forced sterilization law in 1907. And while I assume that means to stop them. And while they hit their peak in 1930s and 1940s, or I don't know if they mean a law. I'll have to look that up. I don't know if they mean a law to encourage forced sterilization or to stop them. But while they hit their peak in 1930s and 1940s, targeting those deemed to be, quote, criminals and, quote, unfit, by the 1950s, sterilization laws started targeting welfare recipients as well. By the way, that should be an episode of its own. In August 1962,
wait a minute. You think there's a problem? There was some sort of corruption with the welfare system in America, Lee? Is that what you're insinuating in this fine country of ours?
Yeah, I think there might be I feel like welfare recipients should not be sterilized. I feel like that's just a step too far.
Okay.
I mean, punch to the balls, sure.
Sure. Punch him in the balls. There's just the government with just a red, white, and blue fucking fist. Just boom. There you go. We're all getting punched in the balls. All right. Sorry.
I think I accidentally deleted it, but they said that 7 states. Oh, never mind. I'm confusing with something else. But anyway, so yeah, forced sterilization of many people in in American history that we should do an episode on. But in August 1962, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was a well-known, activist committee for civil rights, etc., came to Ruleville, Mississippi, and after learning of her constitutional right to vote, Hamer and 17 others volunteered to go register. Because this was common back in the 1960s, is that many Black people and women, I guess specifically Black women, didn't even know, had not been told they had a right to vote, because white America did everything they could to kind of not let them know that was a right and not get them registered, So 1962, she learns of her right to vote. 17 of them go to register. Most of the group was blocked even from attempting to register. Only Hamer and one other man were allowed to fill out an application to take the literacy test, which back then was legal. At that time, literacy tests were purposely designed to keep black people from voting. And when Hamer, and what part of the literacy test was, it's funny they call it a literacy test, but it's far more than that, because they're not just seeing if you can read. They're asking you questions that poor black people are almost definitely not going to know the answers to. Hamer was asked to explain de facto laws. And she later recalled that, quote, "I know as much about de facto laws as a horse knows about a Christmas day." And of course, this was true of white poor people and white farmers as well.
Of course.
But they wouldn't be given these tests.
Yeah. I'd like to know the average white farmer, like poor white person in Mississippi's stance on de facto laws. I'd love to know what where they stood on that issue.
But that was the thing, is they had these tests, but they would only give them to black people that you're trying to stop from voting.
Right.
You know, as if the guy behind her, the white farmer behind her in line, who's like, "I've come here to register to vote, but can you make it quick? Because my mule's outside and he's getting surly." And you think he knew also? Oh, de facto laws. Oh, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like, he's like, what part of the de facto law would you like me to talk to you about?
Oh, you want to know about de facto laws? Well, certainly, good sir.
You want to know on the county level, the state level, or the federal level?
So after failing the literacy test, the group was denied the right to register to vote. On their way back to Ruleville, their bus was stopped by police. Oh, I love this. And fined $100, which at that time would have been a lot of money even to a middle-class person, but $100, I'm sure, to a poor person was like a month's worth of wages.
Right.
Or more. Fined $100 because their bus was, quote, too yellow.
What? The bus was too yellow? The painting on the bus was too yellow?
The painting on the bus was too yellow.
Oh, God. I would
love... known as someone who's had a long time pet peeve against yellow buses.
That's it. I've had it. Too much yellow on the bus. Oh, man.
I love how they didn't even make an effort to be like, you were driving in the wrong lane or something. Like,
yeah, they don't even say that. Oh, you were past the speed limit. No, yeah, you were. They could. That's like a disputable thing. It's not, bus was too yellow. Here's a ticket. Oh, man. That's the kind of thing. Like, if I got pulled over something like that, I'm like, all right, so this cop is just trying to stick it to me. Then I would just say crazy shit to him and say, well, sir, you actually, under the guise of the law, your sunglasses are not the right shape. So you're not. And I go, no, I know the state law quite well. State law ordinance 15.5-C, sunglasses, your sunglasses are at least 2.5 millimeters past the, so this, I can't accept this legally. This is an illegal ticket written due to the sunglasses violation.
And then when asked whether a bus was not allowed to be that yellow, he said, well, it's a de facto law. So in the classic, we just want to bribe scenario, the passengers gathered together enough money, all the money they had, and the police let them go. But upon returning to Marlowe's plantation, where Hamer worked as a bookkeeper, she found that Marlowe was aware of her attempt to register. And by the way, that must mean the cops had called him to tell her plantation that she was trying to register. So he was aware, and he demanded that she withdraw her application because, quote, we're not ready for that in the state of Mississippi. Hamer refused and responded, I didn't go down there to register for you. I went down there to register for myself. And Marlowe promptly fired her and threw her off the plantation.
Wow.
So in 1963, she tried again. She told the registrar, she had another attempt at the literacy test. She said, you'll see me every 30 days until I pass this test. The following month, she found out that she finally did pass. But despite now being registered to vote, she discovered that she still wasn't allowed to vote because she didn't have any poll tax receipts. The poll tax, of course, was a famous way back then to also stop people from voting, mainly black people.
Poll tax receipts.
Yeah.
Like, I think if there's any black people in any positions of authority in Mississippi today, they should just start doing this to like obvious, like red state conservative Mississippi. Just come up with the craziest, like, nope, your pickup truck's too big. Just sorry, you didn't pass the, just make up the most ridiculous thing and just see how they like it. Just see how they like it. I would really like to see that.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good time. Well, they've gotten more sophisticated now. They have voting machines that no one can ever see inside of or hold to account in any way. And you just push a button and it says, yeah, we registered your vote. And you go, whoopee. And that's it. And then Pac-Man flashes on the screen. And that's the end of it.
Or just what happened to all of us that voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020. It's just to vote by mail. Those all got lost in California. That was weird. That was because they knew most of the vote by mail people were independents. They looked at vote by mail. The independent ballots looked different. So they were like, oh, independent paper shredder.
I'm trying to remember I did so many stories on that. But the other thing they did is they were told in California to give out provisional ballots to anyone who even slightly just seemed young or said they were independent or, were voting for Bernie or whatever. Just give out loads of provisional ballots for anyone who was like registering that day or whatever. And the reason they know this works is because provisional ballots are often thrown out. And even if they are counted, they're counted weeks later. Yeah. So by then, the media has already announced, oh, Hillary won. Oh, look at that. Yep. Yeah, there's a bunch of provisional ballots, but and it's too late to overturn. So you just give out tons of provisional ballots to everybody, and that fucks over anybody who's kind of like the newer, younger candidate. I don't mean Bernie's younger, but he was popular with younger people. So.
Yeah, it's why in 2020, I actually registered with the Democratic Party so they wouldn't throw my ballot out. Yeah, because I was always an independent. I've always been registered as an independent in California. And in 2020, I registered as a Democrat for that very reason.
Yeah. So I like this because this shows how racism in America was not always left unsaid. Sometimes it was just right out there for you to see. Sometimes they let it all hang out. The Tuscaloosa, Alabama News, the newspaper there, the biggest newspaper there, published an editorial November 1939 that said, quote, "This newspaper believes in white supremacy, and it believes that the poll tax is one of the essentials for the preservation of white supremacy," unquote.
Wow.
Just right out front.
That's the thing. Like, that's why you hear some of these like old racists are like, well, you can't say anything anymore. You mean like a newspaper can just say we're white supremacists and just we're in favor of blocking Americans from their right to vote, which goes against the American way of life, which is why the Confederate flag is actually people admitting, oh, I want to dismantle the United States of America, so they should be put in prison for treason. I mean, is that what you want?
Yeah. So in 1963, Hamer and 9 other activists were returning on a bus from a voter registration drive in South Carolina. The activists had tried to integrate lunch counters at the bus stations along their way home. And their bus driver then reported them to the police because he did not like this activity of trying to tell people at bus stations that black and white folks could sit together. Hamer and her fellow activists weren't released from jail after the police arrived for 3 days. And in those days, Hamer sustained such beatings that she suffered from lifelong damage to her kidneys, eyes, and legs. While there was a brief trial, all right, Graham, this is your multiple choice. There was a brief trial for these police that beat her within inches of her life for trying to desegregate lunch counters. Do you think those police in the trial, do you think they ended up going to prison or not?
Boy, this is a tough one. Let me see here. Boy, I want to say, yeah, justice was served and they went to trial and there was a fair trial and the jury was a a very diverse jury of people. That wasn't just a bunch of white dudes in the South.
Yeah.
And justice was served because no one, even the citizens of that town, were like, wow, I don't want to live in a city where the police can just beat a citizen for wanting to eat food. Right? Am I right?
Yeah, they were totally punished severely.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
No, they were cleared of their actions.
What? In America, in the South?
They probably got in front of the court and they said, well, you got to understand the reason we beat her is because she was being uppity. And then the jurors were like, well, you're a fucking uppity woman. What are you going to do?
God. Oh.
Hamer co-founded the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, the Freedom Democratic Party, and they gathered an interracial delegation to challenge the all-white delegation at the 1964 DNC. Now, keep in mind, this is 1964. It's not like this is a million years ago. And this is the DNC, and it's an all-white delegation. And, of course, the Democrats are supposedly the ones that care more about black folks in America. All-white delegation. Hamer was selected to be the vice president of that delegation. In August of 1964, she testified before the Credentials Committee, trying to be a credentialed member at the DNC. President Johnson was terrified of this since he needed the Southern Democrats in order to win re-election. He'd initially sent people to persuade Hamer not to testify, but she wouldn't be intimidated. She also, because they were airing all of this on television, he did some impromptu, at the last second news conference to try to preempt her. However, her speech was so good that it was played on television the following day, and it almost made people watch it more because they were like, what is it that he's trying to cover up by having some press conference to try and make sure people don't see her? Unfortunately, as a result of the pressure from both Johnson and Hubert Humphrey, the Credentials Committee refused to accept the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. Democratic officials offered a great compromise to them. They'd be allowed 2 delegates, but they could neither sit in the Mississippi section, nor would they be allowed to cast votes, and neither one of those seats would be allowed to go to Hamer, since President Johnson had said, the quote, he will not let that illiterate woman speak on the floor of the Democratic Convention. So the Mississippi Freedom Democrats voted to reject the compromise, and they went home. In 1964, Hamer ran unsuccessfully for Congress. She ran again in 1967 and 1971. Both were unsuccessful, but you can imagine the roadblocks that were put in front of her. It's not like she had a legit vote. Despite being incredibly critical of establishment politics, Hamer worked to affect the system from both the outside and the inside. In 1968, Hamer became part of the Mississippi delegation to the DNC, finally. During this time, she was a passionate critic of the Vietnam War. And that's yet another reason. It wasn't just that they were like, we don't want a black woman here. It was like, we don't want a black woman who's saying America's racist, who's against our Vietnam War, etc.
Yeah, and the Vietnam War, isn't it weird? Kennedy wanted to get rid of the Vietnam War, and one bullet defies physics and shoots through 3 people at weird angles. And then the next 2 presidents, one a Democrat, one a Republican, just keep the Vietnam War going. Isn't that weird? Isn't that a weird, thing that happened?
It's very strange, but I believe the reason the bullet curved through him 3 times was it was a vernal equinox situation.
That's right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And if Mercury was in retrograde, then who knows what's a bullet's going to do? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. Mercury's in retrograde, then most presidents get assassinated. No.
Most anti-war, anti-CIA presidents happen to get assassinated whenever Mercury's in retrograde.
In 1969, Hamer founded the Freedom Farm Cooperative in order to provide black people with land that they could own and farm collectively. Oh God, America loves collective situations, right?
Oh, I love it. Workers own the mean of productions. That's that's our byline. That's what we love here.
America's all about that. They really are. And the only thing they love more than workers getting together, working cooperatively, and owning the means of production is black workers doing that.
Oh, that's huge. That's the top of their list. America just loves that. They're just huge fans of that.
By
I think top 3 things
1970
America likes is black workers doing that, Americans in general, and then people unifying across labor, like different groups of people unifying. Those are the top 3 things. Just the people in power love those things so much.
Yep. And just, I mean, just look at how much the Biden administration has been helping to create these unions across America.
Oh,
They just, every strike, Biden's there on the front lines.
yes.
Yeah.
He didn't just have
they
Chris
have
Smalls.
they have to keep that applesauce IV hooked up to him, but he's there.
Yeah. He didn't just have Chris Smalls come to the White House for a photo op and then try to take credit for what Smalls did, even though he was probably actively trying to block it. No. It's totally, that's what Biden's all about.
Yeah. By 1970, so 1 year later, the co-op had amassed 680 acres for cultivation. In 1970, the collective also started a pig bank for impoverished families. Because obviously, you know, maybe this goes without saying to some people, but I think to the younger folks watching, if you're 25 or something, you may not understand that there was a certain time in America when you were a farmer or something, and having a certain kind of animal like a pig or a cow was a big deal because it kept giving. Like, you could raise more pigs, you could milk the cow, and it was a whole thing, like, to have these animals that were helping create a sustainable farm. So whereas now you just say pig and people go, well, what's it sliced up and put on top of? Like, that's the end of the conversation. So she started a pig bank for impoverished families. The collective purchased 5 male pigs and 35 female pigs. And over the next 3 years, thousands of pigs made their way to black families. So really creating, I mean, for the amount of people working on it, creating a significant difference in people's lives. Unfortunately, without institutional backing or resources, the Freedom Farm Cooperative only lasted until the mid-1970s. But at its height, it was one of the largest employers in Sunflower County. So I don't know all the details of that collective, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were certain efforts to make sure that collective failed.
Yeah. I have a hard time believing it just failed because, there wasn't an interest in it, or, it was just mismanaged. I really have a hard time. Yeah, that's definitely, they went, all right, how do we screw these people over? How do we do this? Like, they wrote some law, or some big corporate farm came in, or there's some like, oh, you don't have your pigs are the wrong color or something. Wrote them,
they got yellow.
Your pigs are too yellow. Here's a $20,000 fine or something like that. They cut off their revenue streams. They basically did what everyone has done to you and I. YouTube has demonetized us and everything. They just did the agricultural version of that.
And it's kind of like, people know that, like, at the height of the mafia, they owned they paid off the regulators, and they owned the construction crews and things like that. So if a business, a restaurant, wouldn't pay them for quote unquote protection, not only could they go and break their knees and shit, but they could just have one of the regulars come to a restaurant and go, oh, your water pipe is 2 deciliters below maximum flow. That's $1,000 fine right there. You're going to have to get all these pipes replaced. They could just do that kind of shit and destroy your business. So now imagine you're in Southern bumfuck wherever, and you're a black cooperative. They could do the same shit to you. They could come up and go, oh, your farm, it actually has 1 pig too many that's $1,000 fine right there. Like, not that tough.
Yeah, it's not that tough. And it's a non-for-profit, right? So it's a they're dependent upon. So there's so many things you can do. You can nickel and dime them with fees and fines. You can just increase the cost of stuff for them because they don't have the money. And then you can, maybe whatever. If there was somebody donating money, you go, oh boy, we would hate for the IRS to really dig deep into your corporation if you keep donating to this pig cooperative. Yeah. Oh, all right. Donation stop. Oh, suddenly the IRS isn't interested in you anymore. Like, they can do all that kind of shit.
You haven't been paying interest on your pigs. You haven't been paying pig interest.
Oh, pig interest.
So The Voting Rights Act is passed finally in 1965, although now they're doing everything they can to gut the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
Fannie Lou Hamer continued to focus on equal voting rights even after it was passed. Hamer was actually partly responsible for the Voting Rights Act's passage, thanks to her civil rights case, Hamer versus Campbell, in 1965. It was brought against the circuit clerk of Mississippi for restricting Black people's right to register to vote. So basically, her case gained enough attention that it helped get the Voting Rights Act passed nationally. Hamer also organized plaintiffs for a class action lawsuit regarding school desegregation in Sunflower County in 1970. This suit resulted in the district court ordering the county to merge its segregated schools into a single public school system, and the U.S. Court of Appeals upheld the decision in the United States versus Sunflower County. Hamer died on March 14, 1977, at the pretty young age of 59. And it ended up being one of the most publicized funerals in the history of Mississippi. She had become very well known by that point, especially among Black folks. But once she had died, the white folks that had fought against her, because she had gained some acclaim, kind of like MLK, they wanted to be seen like as at her funeral and seen saying good things about her. So all of the people that fought against her across her career showed up at the funeral and talked about what a great and epic, American she was and stuff. So it was one of those situations.
Kind of like people in Martha's Vineyard taking a photo op when refugees are sent them to say, look how good liberals we are. And then the very next day they have the military run them out of there. Is that kind of similar to that?
I didn't even know about the military part.
Yeah. The very next day the military came in and was like, get them out of here when the cameras were gone. Yeah.
Wow. So here's the last thing is that Hamer was buried at the Freedom Farm Cooperative, and her gravestone bears her oft-repeated motto that she came up with. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Wow. That's where that phrase came from. That's great.
Yep. So there's the history of Fannie Lou Hamer, who is an amazing Black woman American who, is not talked about enough, largely because she is a Black woman American.
Well, and also she challenged the systemic racism within the courts and the voting system, and all that stuff still exists in some form or another today. So that's a part of it too. Like anybody, obviously, because she was a Black woman, that's a big reason why she's not in the history books. But then she was challenging those in power. That's why we don't hear anybody. We don't again, all of these people we talked about, Fred Hampton, Eugene Debs, Henry anybody that challenges those in power. Yeah. You're quieted. And if you're a Black person, you're even quiet even more. If you're a Black woman, you're quiet even more. It's just like, it's this show. I love doing the show for two reasons. One, the obvious one is you and I make each other laugh and it's a blast. Two, I learn a lot. I didn't know about her till today. Right. And so we both learn, we both teach each other stuff, and then we share it with our audience. I was watching the chat when you first started saying the story, and people were like, what the no way. So I'm glad the audience, I thank all of you for watching and listening to this show, because I'm guessing most of you didn't know about it. And that's what the show is great. And
yeah. And a lot of these things, I may have a hint of, I didn't know about her until recently. So I, can't claim to be in the know on all these things. But often what'll happen is I'll have like a bit of a oh yeah, wasn't there something about I know there was something about how we didn't really need to drop the atom bombs. And then I'll start looking into it, and it's like, holy flying fuckballs. Yeah. And it's like, so I gained so much, fleshing out of these insane stories. And then, of course, there's a million CIA operations and shit that I've never heard of that you, have brought to our attention. And so, yeah, we're all learning. We're both learning. We're learning with the people that listen.
I know. Every week I learn something, from what you talk about. Some of the stuff you've covered, maybe I knew a little bit, but then you go deep on it and you're just like, oh, good Lord, it's so much worse than we thought. It's always worse than we thought.
Yeah.
It's the show.
One of those is that I'll add it to the topic list. But forced sterilization is like, I know it happened here and there. There was like a mad scientist here or there doing it, but no, it's like there's far more of it than I think I ever realized.
Far more of it than we ever like. It's like everything. It's like, well, I know the CIA's done some crazy stuff, and you're like, oh my God. Like, this show is like, you go to the dentist and you're like, I need a teeth cleaning. I might have a cavity. And they're like, oh, no. You have like 5 impacted wisdom teeth. We need to pull out your whole mouth and just like, it's just replace it with, epoxy goat teeth. You know what I'm saying?
You had a cavity, so we put in an extra goat ball. It should help.
We got to bring back goat balls, baby. That's what we got to do.
So, folks, if you haven't had enough government secrets, I know I haven't. If you haven't had enough, then join us for the extra segment, which will be coming up in a few minutes at patreon.com/government secrets. Every week we do an extra segment there. And, the lowest level is very cheap to sign up. So please join us over there in a few minutes.
And every level gets the content. There's just, you can give more if you want, or you want to get more, you can get a shirt or a mug or whatever. So, but yeah, just go to patreon.com/government secrets and come see us in Stockholm, October 3rd, Berlin, October 5th, and London, October 12th. And then my tour dates: New York City, October 18th, Madison, October 20th, Detroit, October 21st, Cincinnati, October 22nd, and Chicago, October 26th. So all tour dates are at GrahamElwood.com, and government secrets you can get at GrahamElwood.com and LeeCamp.com. Thanks for listening to
Government Secrets episode 98. Really, every episode makes us not trust this country even more.
I love when Graham's epic voice guy gets confused.
When that guy's just like stuttering for words, it's like, wow, that guy's having a tough time in the voice.
Really, every time I don't know.
I think I've lost faith in humanity. Episode 98. What's the point?
Like he's just.
One of these days, the pew pew is going to be him shooting himself.
He's just going to be like,
I can't do this anymore. Goodbye, cruel world.
Voiceover guy? The big. What happened, voiceover guy?
I'll see you on the other side.
We never mention it, but the next episode is like, and coming up now, episode 97.
It's never mentioned. There's just a new today on Government Secrets, episode 99. Lee Camp has a segment, and it's a lot. We just get some NPR announcer to do it.
Yeah.
While there's like cool jazz playing in the background. All right, my friend. We will see you over Patreon.
See you there.
Bye.